Alright guys, so I'm going to be assembling a little piston motor like this. This one's rusted. This is actually the third one I've built. We're taking these as demonstration models to trade shows, and so this is like the after it's rusted model. So I'm going to build the before model, and I'm going to show you how I went about it. So this model goes together really well with paper clips. So we'll use little pieces of paper clips and these needle nose pliers. So the first thing I do is I take part of the crankshaft and I went through and I filed off parts of this, and I've already test fit it. I filed out a little bit inside there just to make it nice and smooth. And then it just goes through there like that so it can turn. And then that is going to be attached to this wheel, this flywheel. So it just pressure fits on there like that. And I just make sure it's on there fairly tight, and then I give it a spin, kind of balance out the, let it kind of settle where it needs to settle. And then I use the modified tool, which is this tool right here, to kind of weld it in place. So for this one, I'm going to use the modified spoon tip. And I really like the modified tool. It runs off of USB power. You can plug it into your computer if you want, but I just use this, little wall charger. We all have like thousands of these laying around. So I'm going to plug this into the side of my bench here. And then it's just a little USB cable, and this plugs into the modified tool. So just plug it in like so. That red light means it's heating, and it'll get pretty hot quick, so we don't have to wait too long. What I do is I just start working this plastic, and I really like doing this with ProtoPasta metal filaments, because the ProtoPasta metals are just really pliable and nice. So you can see it's kind of spreading out already. And this is sort of a way to fuse it together permanently. Make sure that's on there far enough. As well as give it kind of a cool look. It'll look like it was like welded and ground off. And especially after you apply a patina with the rust, it makes it look really nice. So you don't want to get too crazy trying to be perfect with it. So while it's still soft like this, I like to set it on the table and just sort of rub it, and that flattens it out really nice. And then you can go and, just sort of smooth it out further if you want. But I like it to look a little beat up, a little different. So I don't want it to be too smooth. And while I'm pushing it into the table, I'm using my finger and I'm putting it on there to hold that axle in place so that it's as tight as it can get. So there's that. My modified tool has some PLA on it, so it was smoking, so I had to wipe it off. I'm going to put this over here. But you see how that turns out after it's rusted? Looks really cool. So there's that portion. Now we're going to go to unplug the modified tool so it'll cool off. Now we're going to go to assembling the piston. And I use a paper clip for this. I'm pretty sure that's what's intended, because it fits almost perfectly. But straight off the build plate, the hole isn't perfectly round. So I'll use a piece of paper clip to kind of form the hole. If it doesn't go in real easy like that, it's kind of hard, then I'm probably going to get the torch involved. Let's see if I can get that started. There we go. So now I have the torch on, and I don't want this to be red hot by any stretch. So I'll just put the tool in there until the flame starts to turn orange. And then I can just like push this through. You can see it went almost all the way, and I'll twist it as it cools so that it doesn't, you know, become firmly set in there. And then I can pull it out like that. So we'll repeat. As soon as the flame starts to turn orange like that, go on the other side. And this time I made it all the way through. So I'll just turn that just like that. And then you can use some flush shears. Inside here there's a little bit of melted plastic. So you can just sort of clip that away to make way for the piston when the piston goes up in there. So now the piston needs to have the hole melted in it as well, as you can see. It just doesn't quite go in there really easily. See if it'll focus. It just doesn't quite go in there. So we'll just do the same thing. Got that hot. And this takes even less energy because it's so small. So there. Went all the way through, and you can see there's some sticking out up there. So we're just going to use the flush shears, and we're just going to clip that off. Just like that. And try to clear out that hole a little better. There we go. So now we can clip this to the appropriate length. Go ahead and pull it out a little bit. There we go, that looks about perfect. Let's go ahead and turn off the torch here. And then we should be able to just slide this pin in here pretty easily. Just like that. So I'm going to make sure that everything's lined up. And there we go. In there. And there you have it. Piston is assembled. I also noticed there's an edge on this piston. You know, this is about to go inside the cylinder, and those little blobs and stuff are going to cause it to be restricted. Yeah, see, it doesn't really want to go in there. So we're going to have to file that down a little bit. So I'll just use this flat file here. And I'll just sort of go around it and make sure all those bumps are smooth. And you can tell when that'll be the case when you don't have these like low spots here. Well, don't have these low spots. Everything's the same light color. Kind of like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. There you go. Get rid of these bumps too. Feels nice and smooth. So now we'll test fit it. See if it slides in any better. Yeah, that's much better. Still a little rough though, but I think it's because I have to file out the inside of the cylinder, and I'm going to use this like crescent file. It's kind of rounded on this edge, and I'm just going to rasp out the inside of it like this. Go all the way around and sort of smooth it out, make way for the cylinder. Make sure there's no edges and stuff in there. Kind of clean it up some in there. There we go. And the cylinder should just, there we go, much better. a little bit more work on it in this area. It's like the top of the cylinder has a lip on it a little bit. So I'm just going to go around and clean that off. Yeah, it's really important to take your time with this stuff. Not get in a hurry. Yeah, that's like almost perfect. There's just the slightest bit of resistance, but that'll wear with use. But it basically fits like a glove. So now we can put this in here. And we just got to line up the post and the shaft. Let me see if I can use a tool. Make it easier for you to see. So we just have to turn that shaft until, there you go. And I had previously filed and test fit those two parts. And as you can see, it works just fine without having the rest of the parts on there, but the rest of the parts are just to hold it together. So for the rest of this, we have this part here. It's kind of a 90-degree angle, and it mounts, let's see if I can find a good angle. It mounts right in here on the piston and lines up with this other shaft. So it kind of makes a little cam. And it goes inside of this thing. This helps align it, this cover. And this basically just snaps in place. It's such a good fit. But we'll weld that on when we're done. So before we do that, you can see there's a tiny little hole in here that's meant for a paper clip again. So I'm going to dig around here and get a little piece of paper clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a hot paper clip to anchor this into the other piston shaft. So I'm just going to cut this a little shorter so it's the right length. You can see there it'll go through it and then some, like that. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to heat it up and make that hole the right size. Okay, so I've heated up the pin until the flame went orange. Just like that. There we go, just a little orange. And I've cleared this hole so it's the right size now. So now I'm going to put this together. I'll turn off the torch. And I'm just going to slide this in the slot. I'm just going to go ahead and put this on there like that. So I can attach it like so. And line it up so it snaps in place. And it's all the way around. And I could use super glue on this, but I'm going to use the modified tool instead. Let's go ahead and heat that up. And you go ahead and use the same spoon tip. Hold it in place while I very carefully melt it together. Just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and sort of just smooth it out and make the surrounding area match. So like that. Sometimes it helps to let it cool and then go at it again because the plastic will absorb heat. And then once it's absorbed the heat, it becomes too pliable. So sometimes I like to come back to it and smooth it out even more, but this looks looking about as good as I want. I want it to look sort of like a old handmade machine thing. So having like a rough looking weld, a beat up hammered edge or something, doesn't look bad to me. So we'll just leave it that way. There we go. It's pretty cool. I'm going to unplug the modified tool again. Now we have to align this part. Let me see if I can get my lamp involved. Okay, so that took a little work, but it's aligned now. You can see the hole I made earlier with the little piece of paper clip. So now I'm going to put that paper clip back in there, and this time I'm going to heat it up with a torch, and I'm going to push it in there all the rest of the way and actually fuse those two parts together. This time, instead of going until the paper or the flame is orange, I'm going to go until the paper clip is glowing orange mostly. So I need it to have a lot of heat energy because it's going to dissipate just as soon as I stick it in there, and I'm trying to go and get it in as far as I can into there before it cools off. So I'm going to stick that in there now. I'm going to make sure it's straight, and then there, it bottomed out right there. I don't know if you can tell, but it's still sticking out quite a bit. But it works just fine. So now all we have to do is just get this to go in the rest of the way. And I'm going to use the modified tool to do that. So I still have that spoon tip installed, and I'm just going to let it heat up some. And then I'm going to just push it into that paper clip, and that paper clip is going to draw heat from the modified tool. Get that in there where you can see it. And then the paper clip's going to go in there all on its own. So just have to wait for the heat to transfer. Move the lamp down some. There we go, it's a little better. Okay, so I need to hit it like that. Alright, I can feel it moving. So we're just going to keep steady pressure on it, and it's just going to slowly go in all the way. Just like that. It's kind of bent a little bit, so I like to use the flat end of a file and just sort of straighten it back out again as it cools, so that way it won't be deformed. There, I think it's hardened again. Kind of gouged it a little bit in there, so I'm going to try to smooth that out a bit, just like that. There you go. Alright, and there you have it, it's all done. Oh, it's not quite done. One of the things I like to do is I like to cut off this post, and that's hot, so watch out. So I'm going to change over to the needle tip, and I did that while the modified tool was hot, so if you want to do that yourself, you need to be careful. But here's the needle tip. I'm just going to get the camera to focus. There we go. It's just that. It's just like a really thin needle tip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use it to cut about that much off. And I'm just going to try to go straight down, and I'm leaving enough space that the molten plastic that's getting squished out of the way is not fusing with anything. And then when I get most of the way through like that, I can just pull on it, and it'll leave kind of like this edge. And then I can use these flush shears to clean it up. Sort of clip around. Kind of make like this button looking thing. To me this looks better than having the post stick out, but you can do whatever you want. I like to trim it. There we go. That looks better. Then get rid of some of that discoloration from the scratching. Just sort of go over it with the modified tool again. Smooth it out like that. Now it's done. And then if you want to rust it like I did, you can put it in a hydrogen peroxide, water, and salt and vinegar solution. Ratios are up to you. And then once you've left it in there for a while, like, I don't know, I've done 20 minutes to an hour, it'll come out looking like this. And what I did was I rubbed off portions of it, and I used a torch to kind of seal in portions of it. Because sometimes when the metal melts, it looks really cool. So I'll show you here what it looks like when it kind of cooks on. So you see that? Just sort of gives it a different kind of shimmer, like that. Gives it this old oxidized look, like it's burned. So that's some good things you can do to post-process it as well.